Christine, appreciate it. All about jobs today. Today, a bipartisan group of senators are going to be introducing legislation and show, this is their own words, that Congress can get something done during an election year. It's called the Startup Act 2.0, and it would establish new visas to try to encourage immigrants to establish startups in this country. It would also provide incentives to promote investment in startup companies and give those new businesses tax credits. Plus, it would use existing federal funding to bring university research to the market more quickly. The two co-sponsors of the new Startup Act are Democratic Senator Mark Warner of the state of Virginia and Republican Senator Jerry Moran of the state of Kansas. It's nice to see you, gentlemen. Thanks for being with us. Certainly appreciate it. We're going to start with you, Senator Warner, if we can. There already is a Jobs Act, as you well know, and they have said about that Jobs Act it could create 100,000 jobs by 2020. So why is this legislation needed? And how many jobs are you estimating that this legislation could create, in fact?
Well, Soledad, Jerry and I worked on the Jobs Act as well. That focused on how you get these startup companies, where 80% of the new jobs in America that's been created in the last 20 years have come from these startup companies. The Jobs Act focused on getting these companies access to capital, how they can go public, how they can raise money over the internet. This bill that we're also co-sponsoring together is working on how we can get access to talent. How can we make sure that those graduate degrees, PhDs in engineering, where they may be a foreign-based born student, doesn't go back home, but actually can fill a job here in America, jobs that we don't have enough American-born talent to fill. How if there's that foreign-born entrepreneur that wants to raise money and hire Americans here, can do that here in America as well. So the Jobs Act was step one, access to capital. This is step two of that same effort. How do we make sure we get access to talent? Because we've got to compete on both if we're going to win in the global economy.
And in fact, I think the immigration portion of this bill is probably the most controversial part of it.
Sure.
Senator Moran, you've also said that it's the most important part of it. What do you mean?
Well, it is. I mean, this battle for global talent is so important. And since I've only been in the Senate for a little more than a year, in the time that I've been in the Senate, 6 countries around the globe have passed legislation like this. This is a global fight to get the right people in the right place. And we're talking about people with PhDs in engineering, computer science, mathematics. And it's not just about the jobs that those individuals would accept or be able to take in the United States. If we lose those people who come to the United States, get a PhD in computer engineering, for example, and they can't get a visa to stay in the United States, they're sent home. Not only do we lose those people working here, but we lose the opportunity that they will have. They're our most likely entrepreneurs, people who are going to have a new idea. Innovation and entrepreneurship is the opportunity, the best opportunity we have to grow the economy. Big companies are often in the process of laying off workers. Small startup companies are the ones that are hiring. The statistics prove that that's where job growth is going to occur. And so we don't want to lose those individuals for the jobs they create today. But perhaps more importantly, we want to make certain that when they are having that idea about how to start a business, how to be an entrepreneur, how to grow an opportunity, that it's done in the United States, where more jobs are created for more Americans in the process.
Let me ask a question of Christine Romans, who's joined our panel, because I want to dig into this sort of immigration part of it. It's a little bit onerous what you would require under this legislation. Those immigrants would have to complete graduate level work in a STEM field, science, technology, engineering, or math. Within a year of their visa, launch a business that employs at least 2 non-family employees, invests, raises capital of at least $100,000. How many people, I mean, all of these are not small requirements. How many people do you think, Christine, this could affect?
I think there are a lot of people who are getting these extended degrees here in this country who want to stay and want to start a business, and they need the access to capital, which the first part of the Jobs Act tries to deal with. But the bigger issue here is that the big companies are spending hundreds of billions of dollars on R&D facilities around the rest of the world. And it's not, they do complain about a lack of talent here, but it's also at what price? It's much cheaper. You can have 100 engineers for the cost of 3 or 4 or 5 engineers here in China, India, Brazil, someplace else. So there's already a big move afoot by companies who want to be in these other places. Not clear how much legislation is actually going to keep people here when there's a lot of action happening everywhere else.
And at the same time, we haven't seen a lot of bipartisan legislation passed. Let me go back to Senator Warner and also Senator Moran. How likely do you think, and for this question I guess is for both of you, how likely do you think in fact you're going to be able to pass a bipartisan piece of legislation in an election year?
Well, listen, I don't Jerry and I are both new. We didn't get the memo that you're supposed to take presidential election years off. It's not like China's taking this year off or Brazil is. You know, we worked together on this jobs bill that created the access to capital. We hear from tech companies. I was in the tech startup business for 20 years. We've got to also compete for talent, and we think that this legislation moves forward. Yes, some of these companies, as was mentioned, are trying to build R&D facilities elsewhere around the world. Part of that reason is because there's not enough American-born talent to continue to staff those R&D facilities here. I think many of these companies would rather do that here in America, and we're trying to provide that opportunity. We also want to make sure that those entrepreneurs, I think about in my state, a third of the entrepreneurs in the high-tech field are foreign-born, first-generation Americans. If we had the same immigration policies in the 1990s that we do now, a lot of those folks wouldn't have started those jobs here in America. We want to stop that. So we think we've got a pretty good shot.
And it's absolutely possible for Republicans and Democrats to come together with issues that are broadly supported. I would guess that the components of the Startup Act 2 have about 80% support in the United States Congress. And we can't let that common phrase, it's an election year, we're not going to do anything, overcome the value of this legislation. There's nothing more important at the moment than finding the opportunity for Americans to have jobs, to feel secure in the jobs that they have, to expand the economy. And the added benefit is if we can grow the economy, we can get our deficit better under control as well.
Senator Moran and Senator Warner, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.